Hey, thanks for jumping on the call. So today we're switching gears and I need your help on a totally new separate project. So up until this point, we've been working on the pet adoption website. And here I am in the Figma reference design. And if you look in your Figma reference design, you zoom out a little bit and you scroll over to the right, you see the contact form overlay. Here you see the three the live chat feature screenshots. But below that, right about here, you'll see the new feature that we're going to be working on. This new project that I need your help with is a blog. You can ignore the first of the three screenshots because I've already completed that. Essentially, I'll show you my progress in just a minute or two, but I'm going to need you to clone and fork my progress, and then I'm going to need you to leverage your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript skills to add these two screenshot features from the Figma reference design into the Git repository. So we're building a blog for one of our new clients, and if you zoom in on this second screenshot, you can see the heading says, the best blog in the world, and then this is like the detail screen for a specific blog. It says February 12th, the content, and then down in the footer, there's this little graphic area where it says other recent posts or more recent posts, with the picture of the beach, and then different links to like the 5 most recent blog posts. And then also in the header, notice how there's a search icon. When you click on that, if you look at the third and final far right screenshot, sort of this full screen search overlay layout should appear. And then the user should be able to search through all of the website's blog posts, in real time with client-side JavaScript and asynchronous requests. The good news is that you already have all of the skills and tools to make this happen. It's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But I'm going to walk through this with you. The idea, though, is that I need you to contribute your skill set to this existing Git repo. Now, in just a minute, I'll show you the GitHub repo that I'm going to want you to clone and fork. But before we get to that, I first want to talk about the platform or sort of the framework that we're building this blog on. Because we're not using Express, we're not using Next. So we're totally changing gears. We're doing something entirely different. We're going to use a piece of software called WordPress. Now, in about 3 minutes from now, I'll show you how to get started with WordPress, how to get WordPress installed locally on your development environment. But for the next minute or two, I just want to show you what WordPress looks like. Let me explain. So I've already started this project, but I've only completed the homepage. So that's what we're looking at right now, the homepage of the blog. So here's one post called New Post once again. Here's another blog post called, my third example post. Another one called my second example post. Now this is what the website looks like to the general public. But now let me show you what this same website looks like if you're the admin or the owner of this WordPress website. Okay, so it looks almost identical, but now there's this bar along the very top. And now I can visit the admin dashboard. So check this out. If I click this, and then I go into this posts area, here's a list of all the existing posts, right? So like I could edit the newest post and I could change the title to, like the sky is blue, and then click update in the top right corner. And then if I go back here and refresh, there you have it. I can also create as many new blog posts as I want. I can also delete any of the existing posts, so on and so forth. But the idea is that the WordPress admin dashboard is what lets me perform those CRUD operations. And I'm not having to manually write database commands or queries. Anyone, even if you're not a technical person or a web developer, anyone can log into the dashboard of a WordPress website and begin editing existing content, deleting content, creating new content, so on and so forth. Now, what's really cool and why I'm such a big fan of WordPress is that it lets non-technical users contribute and edit and maintain the raw content, right? Like the actual content, the titles, the body content, the blog posts, the pages, but it lets developers, if we look at the Figma reference design again, write CSS for styling and JavaScript, for like live asynchronous data requests and, live search results, so on and so forth. So WordPress is cool because it lets non-technical people handle sort of data entry and content creation, but it lets developers write, handcrafted HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it's this perfect marriage of dynamic content with hand-coded styling and functionality. Now, to recap these 3 screenshots, you don't even need to look at the first 3. That's just the home page, and I've already completed that, right? That's what we're seeing here. It's on my local domain. But the idea is that I need your help. If we look at the Figma reference design, I need you to help me build this inner detail screen for when you click on one specific blog post, right? So like if I go to my preview and see if I click on my 3rd example post, this link of the title, if I click on that, it takes me to a screen for just that one individual post, and then I can click up here to go back to the home page. But I need you to help me make this single individual detail blog post screen look like this in the Figma reference design, right? This middle screenshot. Okay? Also, I need you to add this search icon in the top right of the header, and when you click on it, it should open up, this 3rd screenshot, this full screen overlay where the user can begin typing here. And then in real time, whatever they search for, the different blog post results should appear here. Cool. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, before I need you to start contributing your CSS and JavaScript skills to make that happen, let's first answer the most obvious question. And that is, how in the world can you get WordPress running on your personal computer in a local development environment? Well, simple. Right now, I want you to visit a website called localwp.com. And actually, before we go ahead and download and install that, I just want to let you know that WordPress powers over 43% of all websites on the entire web. So please, you're just going to have to trust me. I know you may have heard stereotypes that WordPress isn't cool or WordPress isn't trendy or, maybe there's not a lot of job opportunities. All of that is completely false. Okay, WordPress powers 43% of all websites on the web. There are so many job opportunities. There are so many websites that use WordPress and you don't even realize they use WordPress. Also, WordPress is not just for non-technical people. There's a huge, huge, huge industry of developers who are super skilled with JavaScript and CSS, and they create themes and plugins for WordPress or custom bespoke sites. And then yes, non-technical people can, insert a blog post or edit or delete blog posts, but still a very skilled developer created sort of the shell surrounding that content. Right? Like a skilled developer wrote the CSS and the JavaScript behavior, so on and so forth. But again, it powers over 43% of all websites on the web. So in my opinion, if you could learn just one framework to get sort of your first job, I think WordPress is a great choice. And that's why I really want your help on this project. Anyways, getting back to the task at hand. How do you install WordPress on your personal computer to create a local development environment? Well, there's this amazing piece of software that I've been using for years now, and I'm a big fan of it. It's completely free, and you just visit localwp.com. You just download for free from the homepage. Anyways, right now, go ahead and pause this video call, download localwp for completely free, and then get it installed. So just walk through the installation after you download it. All of the default options are great, so you can just click, next, 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 or okay, okay. Go ahead and get it installed. Okay, once you have local installed, it should look something like this. When you first launch it, you won't have any projects, so you won't see any of these projects. You might see a screen that says like, hey, you don't have any sites yet, or you don't have any projects yet. Do you want to create one? So click yes, you absolutely do want to create one. Or if that's not an option, you should see a plus symbol or a plus button in the very bottom left corner of the local application. It's falling off the edge of my screen, but trust me, in the bottom left corner, you should see a plus symbol if you don't see an icon in the middle of the screen saying like create your first site. But just go ahead and perform one of those 2 actions, right? Like add your first local site. When you do that, you should see something like this, and let's click create a new site. And then in the bottom right corner, just click the continue button. Let's go ahead and give it a name. Why don't we call it client blog site? Okay, and then click continue in the bottom right corner. Go ahead and click the preferred option, then click continue in the bottom right. Okay, now we need to choose an admin username and password. I'm going to choose a username of admin and a password of admin just so I don't forget it. And I'll let you know that this only exists on our local private computer. Obviously, you would never use admin with a password of admin on the real web, right? That would get hacked or compromised in about 2 seconds. So this is only on our local, personal, safe, private computer, so it's okay. But then go ahead and click Add Site in the bottom right corner. Okay, it should take, maybe only like 10 to 15 seconds. If you're on Mac, it's going to ask for your, Mac username and password. But again, maybe give it like another 10 seconds or so. If it's the very first time you're using the local app, it might take, 30 or 40 seconds, but you can see mine has already completed. Now, what's really cool, if you click right about here, the big title text, that's going to open up your brand new local WordPress website in your browser. Cool, so it looks something like this, and you can see the address is client blog site, whatever we chose for the title, .local. Now, you are the only person in the entire world that can visit this, and you can only visit it on your private local computer, so this is not a real domain that you can share with anyone. It's just for local development purposes. However, we now have a WordPress-powered website. Pretty cool. Now check this out. If you go into the top address bar, at the very end of that address, have a / and then type in WP-admin and then press enter. This is going to take us to the admin login screen, and now just log in, username of admin, and I chose the super secure password of admin. Go ahead and log in. And now you're in the WordPress admin dashboard. This is where we can create blog posts, edit existing pages, delete existing content, so on and so forth. Why don't we just as a quick practice task, let's create 5 new example blog posts. So in the left-hand menu, under posts, I'm going to click add new post. You can click to close this pop-up, and then let's give it a title. Let's say example post number 1. And then for down here, the actual content, I'm just going to paste in some lorem ipsum. If you Google or search on Wikipedia for lorem ipsum, you can find some nice text to copy and paste in there as an example. But I'll just have maybe 2 paragraphs and then click publish in this top right corner. And then you'll have to click publish one more time. Whoops, I see publishing failed. You were probably offline. I'm assuming your copy of local WP will not do this, but I guess my copy just crashed. So back in the local WP application, I would just stop the site. So in the top right corner, you can click the red stop site. That only takes a second to stop it. And then I would just start it up again. I can let you know that in the near decade that I've been using this application, I've never once had that happen. But of course, the one time I'm sharing my screen, it happens. Okay, I actually had to update and then completely quit and relaunch the local WP application, but now it's working just great. Practice makes perfect, so let's just practice creating example post number 2, like a new blog post. So let's click this top left icon to go back to view posts, and then I can click add new post, and I'll just create another example post number 2. And then for the content, I'll just paste in my lorem ipsum, maybe have 2 of those, and then click publish in the top right, click publish again. You can see that was actually successful. And now what's cool is let's go back to our public homepage. So towards the top left of the admin dashboard, this, where it says the title, client blog site, you can click that, and that's your public-facing website. Okay, and now this newest version of WordPress, this default theme, doesn't show your blog content until if you scroll down to the very, very bottom. So way down here where it says watch, read, and listen, and there we see example post number 1 that I created a couple of minutes ago, and the brand new, another example post number 2. And if I click on that, there's that lorem ipsum example content. Cool. So you're free to create new blog posts, edit existing blog posts, delete blog posts, so on and so forth. However, you might realize if we click this icon to go back to our homepage, that this homepage looks absolutely nothing like our Figma reference design. Well, that's because I've already started to create a new WordPress theme that looks just like this. So I have to run for now, but in our very next call, I'm going to have you clone and fork the existing Git repo that I've been working on. I've already created the home page for a new WordPress theme. I'm going to show you how to download that and install it into your local copy of your WordPress website. And then we're going to learn how to start modifying it, right? Like if you look at the Figma reference design, I'm going to show you how to use your CSS and JavaScript skills to start adding, the individual blog post detail screen and also the live search feature. Trust me, it may not seem like much, but learning how to integrate your existing programming skills with WordPress is a very marketable skill. Remember, even if the cool kids are telling you they're not using WordPress, it's a statistic that you can't ignore. 43% of all websites on the web are powered by WordPress. So trust me, this is a great skill to have. I'll see you on that next call. very, very soon. Hey, welcome back. In this call, I want to get our in-progress theme that I've started up and running on your local development environment. So here you can see I'm visiting my local WordPress dev domain. To refresh your memory, in the local WP app, you can always just click on the project name on the left-hand menu here, and then click Start Site towards the top right corner. And then you can always click the site title or this button to open it in your browser. And then to refresh your memory of how to log in as the admin, if you don't already see the admin bar at the top of your website, just visit the URL so you just add a / after your local dev domain and then wp-admin. Okay, and then I can log in with the username and password of admin. Cool. Now if I refresh the public site, there's the admin bar. Cool. Now from here, what I want to do is let you copy over the theme that I've already started creating. Remember, if you look at the Figma reference design, I've already set up the homepage for our theme, and I just need your help implementing the single post view screen as well as the live search overlay. So to get this homepage styling set up so it looks like this instead of this, here's what we're going to do. Right now, I want you to visit this GitHub repo that I've set up. You'll find a link to this repo below the video call player that we're on right now, but it's just my GitHub and then /WordPress-task. From this screen, instead of actually forking it like we've done with previous projects, I think it's probably simplest to just download a zip. This is because we're not going to worry about deploying this to a live service like Render or Vercel or GitHub Pages or anything like that. WordPress works a bit differently. So in this case, it's probably okay to just click the green code button and then click download a zip. Cool, so go ahead and do that. I'll just save it to my computer's downloads folder and then go into your computer's downloads folder and then find that new file. So it's named WordPress task main.zip. Go ahead and extract the zip file and then that should give you a new folder. Make sure that you're not like 2 folders nested deep. I know on some operating systems there will be like one folder named WordPress task main and then inside of that there's another subfolder with the same name, WordPress task main. So we're interested in moving just this one folder that contains all of these direct files. Okay, now this folder that contains all those files, where do we want to move this? That's the question at hand. So there's a few different ways to find this depending on whether you're on Mac or Windows or Linux, but I think the easiest way is to just use the WP local application. With the current site that you're interested in selected from this left-hand menu, I want you to look right below the big site title, and right here you'll see an option that says Go to Site Folder. Go ahead and click on that, and that's automatically going to open up your Windows Explorer or your Mac Finder to the correct location. So once that opens up, you'll see folders like app, conf, and logs. I want you to dig into the app folder and then dig into the public folder and then dig into the WP-content folder. Cool. From here, you'll see plugins and themes. And right now we're interested in the themes folder. So dig into the themes folder. WordPress comes with several themes out of the box by default. And as you might have guessed, this is where we would just want to add another folder of our own doing or our own creation, right? So what I'm going to do is just open up my computer's downloads folder, and that folder that we just created, the WordPress task main that has all these different files, just drag and drop or cut and paste that into the WordPress themes folder. So these are the few themes that WordPress ships with by default, and I just added this folder. Now check this out. Simply by adding this folder, that doesn't change anything in WordPress. Like if I refresh, nothing changed on the site. However, we do have a new choice. So now from your admin dashboard, if you click on Appearance in this left-hand menu, well, there's a brand new theme. It's currently called Brad's Boilerplate Theme Tailwind. There's no screenshot preview. However, if you hover over it, you can click Activate. So that's that brand new theme folder that we just dragged and dropped into that area. So go ahead and click Activate. And now, if you go back to your website and refresh, awesome, you are using the theme that I have set up and gotten started for us. So the home page is complete, right? And you can click on any one of your blog posts and it's going to take you to just that detail. just for that one blog post. You can click the homepage link right here in the header to go back to the homepage. Awesome. So from here, now we just need to start matching the Figma reference design. The homepage is complete, but let's work on the single blog post URL view and also writing some JavaScript to bring the search functionality to life. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves and start, actually building these features, in this call, I want to get you familiar with the tech stack or CSS stack that I'm using for this project. Let me explain what I mean. I'm using a technology called Tailwind. You don't need to know what Tailwind is right this very moment. We're going to dig into that in just a minute or two. However, what I need you to do is open up, so in the WordPress themes directory that we were just adding this new folder to, I need you to open up this copy of the new WordPress task main folder. Open this up in VS Code. So not the WordPress themes folder as a whole that now has 4 themes in it, just our one individual theme. Open that up with VS Code. All right, you'll know that you've opened the correct folder if you see folders of build, src, and files of gitignore, footer, functions, header, so on and so forth. Now, with this folder open in VS Code, go ahead and open up your command line, so Controller Command J, and run a task of npm install. Go ahead and press enter. That's going to go out and fetch all of the different packages we need. Okay, with that complete, we just need to run one more command. Say npm run start. Or actually, start is a reserved keyword. You don't even need the word run. You can just say npm start. Go ahead and press enter. And now let me explain what's happening. This task that I've set up is watching our files for changes. Now, check this out. You might be wondering, well, what is it watching for, or what's so cool about this? Check this out with me. Let's imagine, yes, this is supposed to be a light gray like this to match the Figma reference design, but what if we wanted this to be green? In VS Code, jump into the header.php file. Okay, now around line number 9, you'll see that this div has a class of bggray300. BG stands for background. Now watch this. If you just change gray to green and hit save, now we didn't write any CSS. We just, are changing the HTML class name that we see here. But with our command line up and running, check out what happened. If we go to Chrome and refresh, we see green. And better yet, you could change this from green 300 to like green 700. Hit save, hit refresh. There you see a different color. You could put it to green like 100 for a really light value. Or instead of green at all, we could change this to BG blue, maybe like BG blue 200. Go ahead and save, hit refresh. You get the idea. Now, let's put this back to, I believe it was gray 300. Yes, BG gray 300. Cool. Now, what in the world is going on here? Well, if you look through the HTML, you'll notice that these divs and H1s, they have all sorts of utility classes like, max width 4XL or MX auto or MB5 is margin bottom or padding horizontal for flex, justify, text extra large. But for a small screen breakpoint text 3XL, PY is padding vertical 10, right? So what are all these utility classes? Well, I'll let you know that to power this entire homepage, and better yet, as you and I start building the Figma reference design for this detail screen and even the live search overlay, we are not going to need to write a single line of CSS. We can create these entire custom designs and layouts and details simply by using these pre-created utility classes. Now, I didn't create these utility classes. There is no CSS file in this project. For example, even if you go into the source folder, the src folder, and click on index.css, this is just importing a few Tailwind utilities. I have not written the CSS for any of these class names. Instead, that's what Tailwind is. You decorate your HTML with just these different utility classes, and you can create any layout that you could with traditional CSS. Now, right away, when most people see Tailwind, their first thought is that any faster? And my answer is probably not. It's not really about being faster. Now, if you're wondering why on earth would anyone do this instead of just writing traditional CSS, I've already covered that in a YouTube video that I really want you to check out. It's called Why You Should Try Tailwind CSS, or the problem with traditional CSS. There's nothing wrong with traditional CSS, but as you work in this industry longer and longer, you'll find that a lot of people really believe in the Tailwind, philosophy or worldview. Now, I know that this YouTube video is 41 minutes. You don't need to watch the entire thing. You could probably just watch the first, I would say like 8 to 15 minutes, and it's going to give you the real why behind why you would use Tailwind in the first place. Now, I'm not trying to force Tailwind on you, but what I'm going to let you know is that in the real world, you will inevitably inherit or be asked to help on a project that is using Tailwind. In the real world, a lot of projects don't just use vanilla plain CSS. They're going to use either Tailwind or something called Sass, or they're going to use something called Bootstrap, or Less, or Stylus, or Styled Components. There's another CSS technology called Emotion, or Modular CSS. The point is that CSS is easy to get started with, but it's hard to master in terms of staying organized and creating styles for a website that is always getting updated and always being enhanced with new pages and new features. You'll find that keeping your CSS organized and maintainable is actually a lot more difficult than it might seem at first. So there's like 100 different schools of thought and technologies to keep your CSS organized, and Tailwind is just one of the most popular in the current era of web development. So what's really fun is that in this WordPress project that I'm going to need your help with, we're going to use Tailwind. And the best part is I've already integrated it with the WordPress theme. As you saw, we were changing the background color of that header. For example, if you wanted to change the actual text, right? You can see when you hover over this top link, it shows teal. So let me show you how you would change that. On line number 11, we see the heading level 1, and nested inside it, we see an A element for a link. And here you'll see a class that says hover : text teal 600, right? So you could change this to any color. Now, you might be wondering, Brad, how am I supposed to know all these different utility class names? Like how on earth would you expect me to know hover : text teal 600? Simple. You just go to the official Tailwind website. So it's tailwindcss.com. And now, whenever you want to search for something, like let's say you want to search for padding or colors, you can use the search bar here on the home page, or let me go to, if I just search for padding, you can click on padding. It's going to show you, any property values that you could possibly want, and then it's going to show you the little short utility class name. Now, again, this is just how you use Tailwind. If you're still confused on why we would use Tailwind in the first place, just reference my YouTube video. But anyways, from this documentation, you're always just one click away. Like if you press Command K, or on Windows, I believe it's Control K, that's going to open up the Tailwind website search feature. You can search for anything, right? So padding, margin, line height, display. I mean, literally, you've already learned CSS in this series of video calls we've been working on. So any CSS property you would want, right? Border, position. I mean, literally just the whole language of CSS is broken into these different things you can search for on Tailwind, and then there are utility classes. So this prevents you from having to maintain a separate style sheet CSS file. May not seem like much, but trust me, when you're dealing with complex websites that are evolving over time, and the client constantly needs updates and new features and unique landing pages, so on and so forth, this becomes really powerful. Anyways, what I want you to do right now is if you just search for customizing colors, it's going to show you this cool screen. It's going to show you all of the Tailwind color names, right? So like slate, gray, red, orange, amber. I mean, every color that you could imagine. And then they all have, they go in increments of 100. But at the very tail ends, there's 50, and then the very darkest is 950. But any color you can think of, like for example, if we wanted cyan and then like the level 400 darkness or saturation, it would just be right. So hover, instead of text -teal, this would be like text cyan, and then you just pick the brightness level. So like cyan 300. If I refresh our website now, when you hover over that link, cool. Obviously that looks really bad, but you get the idea. So let me put that back to teal 600. Cool. Now, I have to run for now, but in our next call, we're going to start building out the Figma reference design features using this really cool Tailwind workflow. I'm really excited to build these features with you, and I'll see you in that next call very soon. Hey, welcome back. Let's pick up right where we left off. So here's the home page of our new WordPress website. But if you click on one of these individual blog posts, this screen is just for that one specific post. Now, if you look in VS Code, I can let you know that index.php controls the home page. However, there should be a file in our theme folder named single.php, which will be a different template that controls this individual screen for just this one individual blog post URL. Now, if you look in VS Code, in order to save us some boilerplate typing, I already have a file named single.txt. So we just need to rename this file to then be single.php. So do this with me. In VS Code, right-click on single.txt and choose rename, and just rename it to single.php. Go ahead and press enter. And now, if you go back to your website and refresh one of the URLs for an individual blog post, cool. So we just see a hard-coded paragraph of lorem ipsum, but let me show you what's going on here. So back in VS Code, if you jump into that new single.php file, I've already written a bit of boilerplate that gets us the standard header and the standard footer, but this middle area, so I want to draw your attention to lines, number 10 through 12. It says start your HTML here, and then there's just a hard-coded lorem ipsum paragraph. The idea is that we can add our own custom HTML here. And not only that, but we can use dynamic values, right? Because you might have 5,000 blog posts on your website, but each one has a unique title, a unique posted on date, and obviously unique body content. So just for a quick exercise, do this with me. Right above line number 11, so right above that hard-coded paragraph, so right here, let's have like a heading level 1. So H1, hit tab. Okay, now inside there, you could hard code it to something, right? So I could say like, the sky is blue, and hit save, and then obviously if you refresh, there you see that. Now, from a CSS perspective, it doesn't look like a heading level 1. That's just because Tailwind resets everything to look like standardized text, but let's not worry about that for now. The point is, though, is what if we wanted this to be the actual title text for this specific blog post URL, right? So if you go back to the homepage, this one should be whatever you named it, but for me, it's example post number 1. Well, check this out. In the middle of this tag, so instead of just regular HTML, you can see where my cursor is blinking right here, we can drop into PHP mode to do something dynamic. So less than question mark PHP, and then a space, and then question mark greater than to close PHP mode. But right here, inside of PHP mode, you can just say the underscore title, parentheses to call it. And then it's a good habit anytime you call a function in PHP to end that statement with a semicolon. So we're just calling a function named the underscore title. There's the parentheses to call it. If you save that and then refresh, there is that actually, database-driven dynamic value. And then for the actual body content, check it out. So instead of this hard-coded paragraph, you can get rid of that entirely and just, jump into PHP, close out PHP. In the middle, just say the underscore content, parentheses to call that function, semicolon. So these are built-in functions that WordPress makes available to us. If you save that and refresh, that dynamic content from WordPress will appear here. Now, we can also output, if we look at the Figma reference design, right? If you zoom in a little bit, so the title area should also say like by the author, but most importantly, that we would want to output like the month and the date that it was published, that the blog post was created on. So do this with me. Let me jump back to our browser with our site, and let's go back into VS Code. And maybe like right below the heading level 1, but before the content, imagine if we wanted to output like the 3-letter abbreviation for the month that this post was posted on. So for example, maybe let's have like a heading level 3, and then inside there, let's output the 3-letter abbreviation like Feb for February or Mar for March. So you would just go into PHP mode, close out PHP mode. In the middle, we can just say the underscore time, parentheses to call it. And now in the parentheses, we can give it single quotes and then uppercase M, which is the WordPress way or the PHP way of saying the 3-letter abbreviation for a month. Then we can actually duplicate that entire heading level 3 line. So I have it again, and now let's output the 2-digit day. So that is just lowercase d as the argument. So if we save this and refresh, awesome, there we see DEC for December, and I posted that post on the 29th. Now, yes, our styling and design is completely off, right, in terms of typography and spacing and color and all that. But for now, there's just one piece of raw content that we're missing, and that is the author name or the username of the person that created this post, right? So if you look at the Figma reference design, it should say by and then the author name. So let me show you how I would set that up. So let's just add it maybe like right below the date. So back in VS Code, right below that heading level 3, let's just have like a paragraph, and inside there, let's say lowercase like by, and then it should be the username. But instead of hard coding that, we could just jump into PHP, drop out of PHP, and then call a function, the underscore author underscore meta, parentheses to call that, semicolon after that. Let's give it an argument, so single quotes of display underscore name. Let's save that, and if we refresh in the browser, perfect. Now let me show you how you can customize your display name in WordPress. So if you go into your admin dashboard, and then in the left-hand sidebar down here, click on users, and then you'll see a list of users. You probably just have one user, but go ahead and click on edit for that user. If you scroll down about halfway on this page, you'll see an area called nickname, and it says required. So just change your nickname. Like I'll change it to Brad. And then right below that, it says display name publicly as, and then if you click on that drop down, now you can select your nickname. So for my case, Brad, and then just scroll down to the bottom and click update profile. Now, if you refresh the front end, perfect, we see by Brad. At this point, we have the raw content that we need. We have the title, the actual content, the posted on date, and the author's display name. At this point, now it's just a matter of using Tailwind and CSS to create this layout, right? So this top area should have sort of a 2-column layout, the date box and then the title, and then the actual content can sit below that 2-column layout. I have to run for now, but let's set up that layout in our very next call. Hey, welcome back. Let's pick up right where we left off. So we have all the raw data, the real dynamic data for each blog post displayed here. And at this point, we would just want to style it so that it looks like the Figma reference design. So let's start with this area. I'm seeing this as a 2-column layout, right? So this is the first column and this is the second column. So let's set that up. So in VS Code, we'd want to be in our file that's named single.php. So we see start your HTML here. So just right below that comment, let's start a 2-column layout. So for a 2-column layout, I'll just have a div, so div, and hit tab, and then the 2 columns can live inside this div. So inside that div, I'd have 2 more divs. So div, hit tab. After that, div, hit tab. Cool. Now, on the parent container that has the 2 columns, let's tell it to use display flex. So in Tailwind, you can just say class equals flex. Also, if you look at the Figma reference design, these 2 columns might be different heights, right? Like this is taller than this content, but we want them to be vertically centered. Like this is a little bit shorter than the left column, but it's not aligned at the top, it's aligned in the center. So with Flexbox or with Tailwind, on the parent, instead of flex or just flex, we can also say space items dash center. Okay, and for now that's enough on the container. Now let's focus on the actual first column and second column. Let's start with the first column. So my first thought is how wide should it be? So if you look in Figma, you zoom in and maybe click on one of these elements, you can see that it has a width of 96 pixels. So in the Tailwind documentation website, the official Tailwind website, if you search for the word width, so there's these utility classes of W dash and then maybe a number. So let's just look for something that's the equivalent of 96. So here we can see, let me zoom in a little bit for you. So utility class of W-24 is going to be the equivalent of, 96 pixels. So back in our design on this first column, I would say class equals W-24. I'll also tell it to not shrink, so shrink-0. I want it to always take up that much width, and then I want this area to flex to take up any of the available space. But this one doesn't need to shrink. Let's set up the classes for the second column. So class equals quotes. If we look at the Figma reference design, I think the only thing that this overall second container div would need to have is this gap between the 2 columns. So it looks like it's about 24 pixels. So in Tailwind, if you search, so again, Control or Command K to search, if you search for padding, we'd be looking for something that's about the equivalent of 24 pixels. Cool, so it looks like number 6. So you would just say to add padding on the left, right? Like left padding to this second column, I would just say, back in Tailwind, I would give that div a class of PL for padding left, -6 for the correct amount of like 24 pixels. Cool. Now, before we save this and test this out, let's add a little bit of content in here. So in the second column, if you look at the Figma reference design, that should have the title and then the by author text. So let's just, in that second column, let's just drop down and then let's move the title. So let's move this heading level 1, just cut and paste it to live inside that second column. Let's move this paragraph that says by and then the author's name. So I'll just cut that, place it below the heading. Okay, and then let's work on this date area. Now, before we get that styling exactly correct, let's just give it a background color. So on this one of width 24, shrink 0, let's also say BG-teal. Right, I think it's a safe assumption that it's teal. But now, how do we find these exact color shades? Well, I'd probably just go to the Tailwind website, and if you search for color customization, customizing colors, that'll show you all of the different colors in Tailwind. So then I would just look for teal. Okay, and I would say it looks like teal 500 for that top bar, right? So the month color. Let's just set the whole block to that color for now. So BG teal -500. In that div, let's output the month and the day. Now we can fine tune these later. For now, just to have the content in there, I would move these two heading level 3s with the date, just paste them into this area. Cool. Let's save this and see what it gets us. So hit save. If we go and refresh our individual blog page, cool. I mean, it doesn't look like the design, but we have a 2-column layout. And from here, it's going to be very easy to get the styling dialed in. Let's start with this teal date box. So back in our HTML template, instead of heading level 3s, I'd probably make each one, so both the month and the day, just span elements. That doesn't change the styling, it's just for semantic reasons, because there's nothing truly important about the date. It should not be considered a way of, dividing up the page. It's not like a chapter title or anything important. It's just the date. So a span doesn't really have any semantic value or meaning, and I think that's fine. Technically, there is a time element in HTML5, but this is fine for now. Okay, let's start with the first block of colors. So this first one. So I would say span class equals. First of all, let's make the text white. So you just say text-white. Let's make it a block level element. Let's control the font size. So that would be text dash, and then you can say like LG for large or extra large or small or extra small. So let's go look for the Tailwind size that we would need. So in the Figma reference design, if you click on that date text, with it selected, you can see that it has a font size of 20 pixels. So let's go look for the Tailwind equivalent size of 20 pixels. So if you just search for font size, oops, helps if you spell it correctly, font size. Here we see the different utility classes. Perfect, so you can see 20 pixels equivalent would be text-XL. So let's set that to text-XL. Let's save that and see what it looks like. Cool, right away though, let's horizontally center our text. And I would want that for both the month and the day, so I would probably just tell the parent container. So this element that has a width of 24, I would probably just say text-center. So you save that, cool. The next thing I noticed is that it's in lowercase letters, the E and the C, but if you look at the Figma reference design, it should be all uppercase. Now I know that in regular CSS, so I'll go to Tailwind, the property I'd be looking for is called text transform. So if I search for text transform, cool. So you can see in Tailwind, the equivalent of text transform uppercase is simply just a utility class of uppercase. That's easy to remember, so we just give it that first one, just the month, right? So just this month text, I would say uppercase. Save that, see what it looks like. Cool. The next thing I'd be worried about is probably some vertical spacing above and below the month text, right? So you can see there's a little bit of spacing going on there. You could give it padding, but I'd probably just use line height, right? So if you look in Tailwind and you search for line-height, you can see its utility classes are named leading or leading, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but then dash and then a number. I'd probably try this 2rem one, so I'd probably try leading-8. Letting-8. Let's give that a save and see what it looks like. Cool. In order to see the vertical spacing at the bottom of the month text, let's give the date text a bit of attention now. So if we look at Figma, let's find out this light teal color. So if you go back to Tailwind and search through the colors, so if you search for color, customizing colors, and then we'll look for teal. Okay, so which color are we looking for? We're trying to match this light color behind 12. I think that looks like teal 100. So on this second span for the date, I would say class equals block BG teal dash 100. And then what about the text color? So it'd be text and then what shade of teal? So text dash teal dash, and let's look at the design. So what color does that look like? I'd probably say about 700. So text teal 700. Let's save that and see what it gets us. Cool. Let's just bump up the font size now. So this would be text dash, and then, like large, small, extra large. So I would just look at the Figma reference design, click on that bit of element. So you can see it has a font size of 44. So I would just go look for the equivalent in Tailwind. So font dash size, we're looking for something close to 44 pixels. Let me scroll through here. I'd probably go with this one, text-5XL, which is about 48 pixels. So text-5XL. I'd probably also give it a little bit of vertical padding, and I'm just going to eyeball it. So PY, padding utility classes, I don't need to look at the documentation. After a time, a bit of the Tailwind classes are just in your head and you'll remember them. So, padding left, padding right, padding bottom. PX is on the left and right, PY is on the top and bottom. So I'd probably just say like padding vertical, PY-2. Let's save that and see what that gets us. Cool, this is looking a lot better. Next, let's give the overall container rounded edges. So I would just go on the overall wrapper. So this one that has a width of 24, and I would probably just say rounded-2XL. So some of these I've already just memorized. You could go to the Tailwind documentation and search for border radius, and you would find this same information. And then let's be sure to say overflow-hidden. Let's give that a save. Perfect. I'm noticing that this date text looks like it's slightly closer to the bottom than it looks like it is to the top. I'd probably fine-tune the relative positioning and push it upwards just a tiny, tiny bit up from the bottom. So to fix that, here's what I would do. I'll find the date text. I'd probably just wrap it inside another inner interior span. So like opening span tag here, and then another closing span here. On this opening tag, let's say class equals, and let's just say relative to set position relative, and then just push it up from the bottom 1. So bottom-1. Let's give that a save. If I refresh, it's going to be subtle, but watch this. Cool. It might just be personal preference, but I think that looks better. Let's change gears and work on the styling for this content. So let's start with the blog post title. So back in VS Code, we'd be referring to this heading level 1 inside this this right column. So on heading level 1, we're going to start giving it a few classes. So text dash, let's start with the font size. So in Figma, I'd probably click on that text. I can see that it has a font size of 40. So then let me go look for the equivalent utility class. This is probably the closest one. So it's 36, so text-4XL. So text-4XL. We also want it to be bold. So normally you would do that with the font weight property, and you could search for font weight on the Tailwind site, but I can let you know that it's just font-bold. Okay, so if we save that, refresh, perfect. Now let's work on the author text. So this paragraph, let's give it a few utility classes. So class equals quotes. Say text-XL, let's say text-gray 400. So I'm really familiar with Tailwind classes, but you would look up the appropriate matching colors and font sizes. Go ahead and hit save. Cool. Before we bring this call to a close, I want to talk about media queries or, mobile responsive design with Tailwind. Let's use this title text as an example. Maybe we don't want to use this large of a font for tiny smartphone screens. So if you right click somewhere and choose inspect and go to your developer tools, and then you can use this icon to simulate a smartphone. Right, you can see on the iPhone 12 Pro, maybe that font size is just a little bit too large to fit here. So let me show you how in Tailwind you can feed one size to one screen size and or a property or value, and at different breakpoints use different values. So on this heading level 1, maybe we only want to use 4XL for screens that are at least considered small. So it's SM : and then the class. But the baseline for tiny screens, let's say text-3XL. Or, I think that would look good, but just to really prove a point, if you just do text-XL and refresh, notice it's using that tiny size, but if I toggle back to normal desktop view, it's using the other size. Cool. So we wouldn't actually want it to be that small on a smartphone. Let's use maybe like 3XL. Cool. I think that looks great, right? It looks good for a smartphone, but now we have that 4XL for other screen sizes. So the idea is that in Tailwind, you can sort of write media queries or screen size breakpoints just by prefacing a class with SM : for small screens or medium screens or large screens or extra large screens. Cool. So make sure our file is saved. I need to run for now, but I think we've made some excellent progress. In our next call, let's fine-tune the spacing above and below this date and title area, and then let's also set up styling for the main content area so that paragraphs look great, bulleted lists look great, H1 through H6, so on and so forth. And then even after that, we need to start adding this area to the bottom. Right? So at the bottom of every individual blog post, there should be this cool, teal beach photo area with 5 links to other recent posts. It's going to be fun to set all of this up together, and I'll see you on that next call very, very soon.